Hi, I'm Movie Man. I'm an octopus who reviews movies, and today's review is going to be on. Now, let me start off the bat by saying this. This was a movie which, going in, I did not have very high expectations for it. I mean, I had known about this film. Obviously this is based off of a children's book series from nearly 70 years ago now. But yeah, I had known that this movie was coming out. Like, this film kind of has a bit of a rough production, it seems, because they announced this over a decade ago now, and it was supposed to be a fully animated movie, but there was no news on it for about a decade. But then suddenly, there, 3 years ago now, we started actually getting information on it again, and said I was going to be a live action animated hybrid. Movie was supposed to come out last year, I'm pretty sure. I think first it was supposed to be released in January, then it got pushed to June, and then it got pushed all the way to August of this year. But now, a year later, we have finally gotten the movie. But as I said, my expectations going into this one were not very high. I'd seen the trailers for it, and from what I was seeing, I was not that impressed. Like, the trailers for this film just made it look like the most generic kids movie ever. But yeah, so I didn't have huge expectations for this movie going in, and also I had seen that the reviews for this one were looking pretty bad, so didn't expect much from this film, to be honest. But having seen it for myself now, what do I think? Yeah, this movie basically is what I expected it to be. Don't get me wrong, for the most part, it is a harmless enough kids' film, and I can see young kids enjoying it, but let's just say if you have more than one digit in your age, then this movie does not have much to offer for you. Um, so getting further into my thoughts on this film, the cinematography in this movie is okay. It's not a badly shot film. For the most part, I think it's well shot enough. There is some okay looking shots in this film, and especially during kind of some of the scenes where we see inside of Harold's color world. There are some genuinely nice shots. So I think cinematography wise, the movie is okay. The editing, I'll be honest, there isn't really a whole pile to say about. Like, I mean, this movie doesn't have like terrible editing, but with that being said, there's just nothing really like noteworthy to say about it. Like, I mean, kind of is just very basic editing. Yeah, not really much to say about it other than that. Yeah, the editing in this movie is kind of just whatever, to be honest. As for the film's pace, now, thankfully, this isn't a very long movie, it's 90 minutes in length, so yeah, it's not really a very long film. Honestly, I think the film goes at like a quick enough pace, to be honest. Like, we literally just get introduced to Harold's color world, and then like in like the first like 10 minutes of the movie, they just go straight into the real world. And yeah, like, I mean, after that, the film kind of slows down a bit in terms of its pacing, but it goes kind of at a fairly fast enough pace. As I've said, it's a 90-minute long film, so yeah, it's not like you'll be there for that long, at the very least. If there is like any issues I do have about the pace in the movie, though, I'll admit I think the film's third act is honestly a bit rushed. Like, especially the climax when they're fighting off against the villain. Yeah, honestly, I think that goes by a bit too quickly. That was honestly a bit rushed. Yeah, so overall, I'd say like the pacing in this movie, not terrible, but not exactly great pacing either. But with that being said, at the very least, it is, only 90 minutes, so it's not like you'll be there for very long. The sound and music in this movie, nothing really that noteworthy to say about it. Like, we have some sound effects in here for like, when like they be using the crayon to draw things and stuff. And yeah, like, I mean, it's not terrible or anything, but it's also just very basic. And well, as for the film's score, yeah, nothing really noteworthy to say about it either. Like, honestly, it's just a very kind of generic kids movie score. So yeah, the sound and music in this film is honestly just very lackluster. As for the visuals in this movie, like, there is a bit of like animation, because this movie's kind of a live action animated hybrid. Like, at the start of the film, we have like it's like this animated segment kind of introducing us to Harold and this world that he lives in. And Admittedly, I think like it's a nice animation at the start. Different styles that they have with it. Admittedly, it is nice to look at, and like they go into the real world then, and like the moment how we see Harold as an adult, that's basically when the film kind of starts to go downhill. Honestly, and yeah, we had to have like a bunch of like visuals here and there, and like whenever they be drawing stuff, and there be stuff then that gets created. We have some visuals for a lot of them, and yeah, I gotta be honest, the visual effects in this movie do not look all that great. Like I mean, it's not like the worst I've ever seen. Like I mean, there are some effects that look okay, but for the most part, what effects that we do get, they honestly are just very cheap looking, and yeah, honestly, they're just not really great to look at. So, yeah, well, there is nice animation, and the visual effects work during the live action scenes, most of the movie, not very good to be honest. Now, getting into the characters and the performances from the cast, starting things off with the titular character of Harold, and like, if you're familiar with the children's books, obviously Harold, he's a little baby, but in this film, he's only a baby at the start, and then they age him up into an adult, and well, because he's never really like has the proper time to grow up like in the real world, he's basically kind of a man child, and yeah, I mean, he's a bit of an obnoxious protagonist, and I get that's kind of what his character is meant to be for this story, but he's not a particularly very likable one though. Like he just doesn't really have that charm or likability to him, and he's not even really very funny either. And of course, he's played in this by Zachary Levi, and yeah, you can clearly tell like the inspiration for his casting as Harold. A lot of it comes down to the fact that he previously portrayed Shazam in the DCEU, and obviously with the DCEU over now, he's not gonna be Shazam anymore, but that doesn't mean he's done playing kids in adults' bodies, because they've cast him here for this movie to play the adult Harold, and yeah, to be honest, he kind of just plays like another kind of version of Shazam, I feel, with him portraying this like kind of man child, a kid in an adult's body, and like I mean, he kind of does what the script asks of him, but he doesn't really make Harold a very likable character, honestly, and yeah, I don't know, I get the feeling like he probably could be getting, typecasting more of these roles, which wouldn't really be very good for him, honestly. But yeah, overall, Harold as a character just isn't really very great. Like, I mean, Zachary Levi tried for this performance, but he just couldn't really make Harold a more likable character. His two friends, Moose and Porcupine, yeah, I didn't really like either of their characters either. I just didn't really find either of them very funny, to be honest. The two actors, Lil Rel Howery and Tanya Reynolds, they tried, I mean, Lil Rel Howery, I do normally like him in things like in Get Out and stuff. He can be pretty funny, but I don't think he was very funny here, to be honest. Yeah, I just didn't really like either of them as characters. As well as that, then we've also got the two main humans who they meet in the real world. This woman named Terry and her son Mel. I didn't really like either of them as characters either. Terry, there's nothing really all that interesting to say about her character, and of course she's played in this by Zooey Deschanel, and I can't help but feel like her casting in this is largely in part because, of course she was also in Elf from 20 years ago. This is kind of a similar movie to Elf, but definitely does not have the same charm or funny humor that Elf has. I mean, she doesn't really look very interested at all throughout this movie, and to be fair, it's not like I really blame her, to be honest. Yeah, she's just very wooden here. I just wasn't into her character. Same with her son as well. No offense to the kid actor, but his performance wasn't all that great either. But to be fair, it's not like this kid was really given much to work with. Yeah, I just couldn't really get into either of their characters. They were just very generic, honestly. And the villain of the movie then, this guy named Gary Nestwick, who was this librarian. Yeah, honestly, as a villain, he quite kind of sucked, honestly. Like, his whole, motivations for being a villain, the movie kind of went back and forth. First, he's kind of this failed author who wants his book to get published, but no one will publish it. But then he wants to steal Harold's crayon to do some stuff with it, but it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And not to mention, throughout the movie he's constantly crushing on Zooey Deschanel's character Terry, and I honestly don't get how she's not more creeped out by him, because he just goes really over the top with it, but not in a funny way, and just kind of an annoying way, honestly. Jemaine Clement, he kind of tried to make Gary entertaining, but I just couldn't get with him as a villain, so yeah, overall, the characters in this movie were just not very good, and the acting also just wasn't great. Some of the cast tries, but ultimately they couldn't make the script more entertaining. So yeah, the characters and the acting were just not great. The plot of this movie now. The film does have a very familiar concept with, we have these characters who live in this, alternate, colourful world. They decide to go into the real world, you've seen it before in other things, Elf and Barbie. But this film doesn't have nearly the same amount of charm that either of those movies have. Like this film it's really just kind of this generic kids movie like the trailers made it out, and like I did kind of expect that, to be fair, and look, nothing against, just kind of a movie that's supposed to entertain kids, but really that's about it. Kids are the only ones who are going to be entertained by this movie. As I said, if you have more than one digit in your age, you will not be very entertained by this film, because a lot of the humor in this movie is just honestly very childish. It can be a little funny at times, but for the most part, this movie really fails to make me laugh. And yeah, honestly, it's just not very funny, and I get you're kind of not really supposed to put too much realism in here, but throughout the movie, as a lot of the stuff is happening, like you're kind of just wondering how they're getting away with all of this, and not to mention, like there'll be stuff that will happen, but then the movie will just forget about it and leave it under the rug. Yeah, honestly, it just really makes for a very kind of safe but utterly very generic kids film. Again, as I said, you'll only be entertained by this if you're a kid. You have more than one digit in your age, this movie will not really do much for you. So overall, the plot of the film is just kind of a harmless kids movie plot, but that's what it is at best. Other than that, it's just very generic, not very funny, and too stupid for its own good. Um, in terms of the film's narrative structure, the main plot with the movie is, Harold and his friends, they go into the real world and they're trying to find their father, who is like the author of these books, Crockett Johnson. They go into the real world to try to meet him, and that is kind of the main crux of the narrative. But they meet up with Terry and her son, and they kind of get into hijinks with them, and yeah, it's kind of this stuff you'd expect from a movie like this, but it's not really very funny, honestly. It's just very generic, to be honest. But like in terms of any subplots, like we just have a bunch of stuff going on, but it's not very funny. We have the whole subplot with the villain Yari, and honestly, that whole subplot is just there so there can be like a villain in the movie, and Gary isn't a very good villain. He's just way too over the top with the stuff that he does, so that whole subplot just isn't very entertaining. It's just kind of annoying. And honestly, I think we would have been better if they just cut that whole thing out. Honestly. So, yeah, overall, I say the narrative structure, we have some things in here, but it's not really of substance or really kind of making it more interesting. It's just a very generic narrative structure that only the kids will be able to get behind. So overall, Harold and the Purple Crayon is just honestly a pretty bad movie. I guess it's a film aimed at kids, and I don't really like getting too mad at films that are clearly just meant to be aimed for children, but with that being said, we of course have to remember that even movies aimed at kids still need to be critiqued. Um, and yeah, I can see it's working for kids, but as I said, you won't be entertained by this if you're not a kid. Like, there's like kind of some things to enjoy in here, like as I said, I can see kids enjoying it, and I suppose it can be a bit funny at times, just a bit like, and as I said, I can understand kids liking this. I think this will be a movie that kids will enjoy, but the movie just doesn't really have anything to offer outside of that. Like, the plot's just way too generic, the humor isn't funny enough, the acting is nothing to write home about, the characters aren't interesting or well written. Yeah, it's just very generic, honestly, and one that won't leave a lasting impression. If you have kids that would be interested in checking this out, then maybe I'd recommend, when this movie is out on digital or on streaming, maybe turning it on for the kids while you go do something else. But that aside, this film isn't really worth anyone else's time. So with that, I'm going to give Harold and the Purple Crayon a 4 out of 10. So with that, I'll see you guys next time, and bye.